You might have friends who suffer from continuous bouts of sneezing as soon as they get up, don't you? You may know someone, and there will be people who are always suffering from running nose, and if you ask them, they'll say that deviated, it's all because of deviated nasal septum, or they may say polyps, or they may say, that runs in their family, or there will be people who are suffering from asthma, bronchitis, sinusitis. So the list of respiratory diseases is a long list. And I personally I had been suffering from bronchitis during my first year in med school. And it was then I realized that the respiratory diseases can be such an annoying and debilitating health condition. So it was with the help of my faculties, I was able to, in the first year, we are new to naturopathy, and it was my faculties who designed a diet for me, and they took me through a series of pranayama practices and yogic practices. That way, in the first year itself, I was able to root it out. So if I could do it, then definitely anyone can, practice and root out the diseases like asthma, bronchitis, and you name it, any respiratory tract infections. But not whether it may not be happening overnight. You may need a very persistent and continuous effort from your side. It could be in the form of diet, a proper sleep hygiene, staying away from stress, and you need to meditate, you need to do pranayama, and a proper healthy diet is the most important one. And exercise is also equally important, and sleep hygiene, as I always say in all of my blogs, this is very, very important. So in today's episode, we'll see what are those food choices which can positively influence your lungs health or your respiratory tract health, and those which can negatively impact it. If you ask me, tell me one miracle drug that can keep you away from bronchitis or asthma or running nose. No, I may not be able to help you there, but I can definitely say that there are food choices which can positively impact the health of your respiratory system in the way that, it can increase your immunity, it can support the functioning of your respiratory tract, and also reduce the risk of these respiratory tract infections. So let's have a look at today's episode. Now let's see the list of foods that should be avoided to prevent respiratory tract infections like asthma. So here is the list. We should avoid sulfites, and sulfites are used as a preservative in mostly tinned products, bottled products, even wine, in pickles, in tinned and bottled juices. They all contain sulfites. So majority of them are having sulfites as preservative, and you should avoid it because sulfites can exacerbate your existing respiratory tract infection, and it can even make your respiratory tract prone for infection. So these should be avoided. And a 2017 study has revealed that white wine can increase your intolerance towards asthma. So that makes a person more prone to asthma. You might have heard that coffee really helps you if you are having an asthma attack, because once you intake coffee, what happens is that the respiratory tubules, it dilates, and so that blockage of airways are relieved. But there is a bad news. Coffee, tea sometimes contain salicylates. So by the presence of salicylate, an existing asthma attack can be exacerbated. So this is a debatable thing, to have coffee or not to have coffee. But I prefer you not to have coffee. Foods that are flavored with herbs, even tea and coffee, may sometimes contain salicylates. In that case, that makes a person more prone for asthma. So in better cases, it's always advisable to avoid coffee, tea, and excessively spicy food and excessively seasoned food. A 2014 and 2016 study has revealed that Aspirin, which contains salicylate, can also exacerbate asthma in people who are prone to wheezing and all this respiratory tract infections. There is one more reason to avoid junk food. A study which was conducted in 2013 on teenagers and children has revealed that children who consumed these junk foods more than 3 times a week are more prone to asthma, that too severe attack of asthma and other health related issues, than people who do not consume these junk foods for more than 2-3 times a week. So this is another reason that we should avoid junk foods from our kids and teenagers' diet. What happens in asthma? Here, the respiratory tubules are actually inflamed and they swell, and the inside lining and the inside passage, that becomes narrow by the production of excess mucus. So we should know the food that will prevent the excess production of mucus, and also the foods that are very essential for keeping our respiratory system healthy. So let's have a look. The first one, the topper in the list, is the usage of vegetables and fruits. Nothing in specific. I can generally say the usage of vegetables and fruits, the raw diet, it helps to reduce the asthma attack. 2017 study, a review that has conducted in the year 2017, and in 2020 another study was conducted, and both the studies have shown that asthma can be reduced to a greater extent by the usage of vegetables and fruits. And in 2017 study, it reveals that the percentage of, or the probability of getting a wheezing attack can be reduced to a greater extent by the use of vegetables and fruits. Vitamin D reduces upper respiratory tract infections like common cold, and it also enhances the respiratory functions of the body. So vitamin D is there in mackerel, tuna, salmon, all the fatty fishes, and it is also there in cheese, in yolk, in egg yolk, and it is also there in mushrooms. And vitamin D sources of food is comparatively less, and you definitely need to have a sun exposure, and that gives the required daily dosage of vitamin D. And in places where a sun exposure is not possible, then sometimes you will have to depend on vitamin D supplementations. Beta carotene is really good for our respiratory system because it can prevent the respiratory tract against infections. Let's see the common sources of beta carotene. Beta carotene is there in carrot. It is there in sweet potato. It is also there in red and green peppers, red and green capsicum, in dark green vegetables like kale and spinach. It's there in broccoli. It is also there in apricots. So whatever that is regionally available. You don't have to go after kale. You don't have to go after squash. Vitamin C is capable of reducing the risk of respiratory tract infections. And not just that, it is also capable of enhancing our body's immunity. So vitamin C sources are, the common sources are citrus fruits like oranges, lemon, then we have cantaloupes, and we have kiwi and broccoli, and even the cooked potatoes, tomatoes, and what else? Capsicum, red capsicum and a green capsicum. They are all rich sources of vitamin C. Apples, berries, green tea and black tea are rich in flavonoids, and they are also capable of increasing your immunity as well as strengthening your respiratory tract against infections. Seafood, eggs, milk, in general, dairy products meat are rich source of selenium, and selenium can be included in your diet. Again, this prevents infection and protects your respiratory tract. 2017 study reveals that by the intake of whole wheat, we can reduce the risk of respiratory tract infections. And this being a time of pandemic, and we are definitely concerned about our respiratory system. So these are the food choices we should always keep in mind. Whole wheat pasta, buckwheat, bulgur wheat, all these are capable of increasing or strengthening our immune system as well as supporting our respiratory tract against infections. So a 2017 study reveals that whole wheat products are capable of increasing the function or enhancing the function of our respiratory tract.